General Hospital spoilers indicate that the ABC daytime soap has recently released a teaser promo video for the week of June 30th to July 4th, and fans should prepare for some tumultuous days in Port Charles. As the video progresses, an unknown woman's voice can be heard in the background saying, "When gangsters go to war, they don't go after each other first, they go after their enemies and loved ones." The GH Weekly preview begins with Jen Sidwell atop Windmere's parapet, looking smugly over the small village while watching the fire at Charlie's pub. As the scenes change, a clip of Sonny Corinthos is shown with a worrisome expression as he stares at Jason Morgan, who also appears concerned. Both men's faces reflect police/emergency crew lights. The following scene in the promo shows Natalia Ramirez on a couch, evidently inebriated, gently slumping over and dozing off into slumber. Is this the end for Natalia? As the GH peak concludes, a horrifying scene unfolds in which fire is hurled through the window of Charlie's tavern into a puddle of gasoline. Kristina Corinthos Davis, who works behind the bar, is present when the fire begins to spread. When she hears the fire hit the glass, she jumps up, horrified. The final footage of the teaser for the week of June 30th features a shocked-looking Sonny and Jason, with Alexis Davis's voice heard in the background exclaiming, "I'm not going to bury another daughter." General Hospital spoilers indicate that Sonny, Kristina, and Alexis will face some terrifying moments as Sidwell unleashes his first series of attacks on the Corinthos family. Sidwell is not pleased that Sonny has rejected the idea of giving him his PC organized crime ring, and he intends to make sure Sonny understands this message loud and clear. The city of Port Charles was used to bloodshed, secrets, and blood feuds bubbling beneath the surface. However, the conflict between opposing syndicates had become considerably more combustible than anyone had expected. It was no longer merely territorial conflicts, it was personal. Deep, terrible resentments had erupted into something explosive, and once it spiraled, there was no stopping it. Kristina Corinthos Davis had grown up across the world. She had seen her father Sonny in action, and felt the shiver of anxiety when his adversaries approached his household. But she'd always trusted him to keep her safe. She was a Corinthos, which had both advantages and disadvantages. Or so she thought. Charlie's calm night quickly turned into mayhem. Kristina stayed late after closing to reorganize the storage area and finalize paperwork. She'd been alone for more than an hour, not expecting anyone else to stop by. The street outside was vacant, and the bar was securely locked. But something about the silence didn't feel right. A calm had settled in. A cold, unnatural silence that made the hairs on the back of her neck rise. She had heard it before she saw it. The sound of glass breaking in the alley is followed by the roar of an engine. Then followed the blast. A fiery explosion exploded just outside the back entrance, causing shockwaves throughout the building. Kristina was pushed off her feet, and a cloud of smoke and flames filled the hallway before she could scream. She managed to get up. Dazed and coughing, she staggered to the front of the pub. Her ears rang, her eyes burned, and her chest pained with each breath. She reached for her phone, but it was gone. Lost somewhere in the explosion. Flames had started licking the walls behind her. The structure wasn't going to last long. When the firefighters arrived, she was slumped behind the bar, semi-conscious. They rescued her from the wreckage just as the ceiling fell. She was fortunate to be alive. Barely. It did not take long for word to reach Sonny. He was in the warehouse discussing shipment timetables with Dex and Frank when his phone rang. The call came from Dante, and when Sonny saw his son's name appear on the screen, he knew something was wrong. "Kristina's been hurt," Dante remarked. "Explosion at Charlie's." The warehouse became silent. Sonny did not even answer. He was already out the door. Kristina had already been in a treatment room, surrounded by physicians and nurses, when he arrived at the hospital. Alexis was also present, her face pale with anxiety, her hands trembling as she attempted to obtain information. Molly and Sam arrived moments later, both agitated, their words overlapping with inquiries that the staff could not yet answer. Sonny raced through the emergency entrance like a cyclone. Security recognized him but did not dare to stop him. Jason Morgan was close behind him, silent and deadly calm, his gaze fixed forward. They moved like two storms colliding. Sonny's face twisted in an unusual way as he spotted Kristina. Her skin was bruised, her arms scratched and raw from the blast, and she hadn't fully recovered consciousness. A doctor attempted to speak to him, but Sunny did not listen. He grabbed for her hand, squeezing it with affection that belied the rage swelling within him. Who did this? He mumbled. Who in the hell did this? Jason didn't have to ask. He had already begun gathering names. The competing families had been encroaching on Sunny's domain for weeks, and while Sunny had attempted to maintain peace, it was evident that someone had declared all-out war. The explosion was not accidental. It was a message. They had sent it through Kristina. That made it personal. This made it unforgivable. Jason made calls while Sunny sat by Kristina's bedside. He called Brick, Spinelli, and even asked Dex to perform surveillance. Jason didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The expression in his eyes spoke everything. He was going to find out who was guilty and ensure that they never touched another member of Sunny's family again. Kristina awoke slowly, pain bringing her back to consciousness. Her mother was the first person she saw. Alexis stroked her hair and tried not to cry. Kristina looked at the ceiling, bewildered. What happened? She whispered. You're safe, Alexis stated. There was an explosion. You got caught in it. Kristina's face twisted in sorrow as the memories came back. Charlie's, it was on fire. You made it out, Molly said gently. You're okay now. Kristina turned her head slowly. Sunny stood like a statue at the foot of her bed. His look was a mix of anguish and shame, his gaze fixed on her as if to ensure she was genuine. You shouldn't have been there, he remarked quietly. I work there, she grumbled. You know that. His jaw clenched. Not anymore. Jason returned with updates shortly after. He waited until Sunny came out into the corridor before giving him the list. 3 suspected culprits, smaller firms looking to move in, all too irresponsible to comprehend what type of fire they just started. Sunny did not hesitate. He placed the call. Send a message, he replied to Jason. A loud one. Jason nodded. The following few days in Port Charles were stressful. Kristina stayed in the hospital, where she was attended over by family members at all hours. Sunny was always moving, juggling visits and strategy talks. Carly came in more than instances, both to check on Kristina and to warn Sunny that his enemies were not done. This was just the beginning, she explained one afternoon at General Hospital. You know that. I know, he responded. What are you planning to do? He didn't respond. His stillness was all she required. Jason's vengeance was quick and savage. One of the rival family's stash houses was burned down. Another had its whole inventory seized in one night. Nobody was murdered, but the message was clear. Sonny Corinthos was back in the game and he was out for blood. Nonetheless, Kristina's illness weighed severely on Sunny and Jason. They'd both seen far too many people injured in the crossfire over the years, wives, siblings, and children. And this time it had got too close. Kristina suffered with it as well. She tried to downplay her injuries, saying she was all right and didn't blame Sunny. But the reality was more convoluted. She had always battled for independence, a life separate from her father's empire. She took pride in her business, her advocacy, and her hard-won tranquility. But suddenly her calm had been ripped away, and she didn't know who she was without it. She chatted to Sam late one night, alone in the hospital room. Why does this keep happening? Kristina inquired, her voice husky with resentment. Why are we continuously being targeted? Because we're Corinthos women, Sam said. And because Dad's world always bleeds into ours. But I wasn't a part of it, Kristina said quietly. I tried really hard not to be. It seems to have found me anyway. Sam did not have an answer. She simply took her sister's hand. Meanwhile, Jason got closer to the truth. The more he looked, the more obvious it became that the explosion was not a random impact. It had been planned, intentional, and perfectly timed for maximum impact. Not just on the structure, but on Sunny's heart. One night, Dex returned with information from an unknown source. Someone within the Corinthos group had leaked information on Kristina's schedule. This was an inside job. When Jason presented the information to Sunny, he remained silent for a time. Then he slammed his fist against the wall, wrath coursing through him like an electrical current. We've got a traitor, Jason remarked quietly. Then go find them, Sunny growled. Find them and make sure they never breathe another word. The betrayal struck Sonny even harder than the explosion. Not only did it harm his kid, but it also indicated that someone close to him, someone he trusted, had turned. In his world, betrayal was the ultimate sin. The hunt started in earnest. Jason collaborated with Spinelli to monitor communication logs and detect suspect banking activities. They whittled the list down to 3 names, all lieutenants who had been with Sonny for years. However, one name stood out: Benny Russo. Benny has been unusually silent recently. He'd taken more vacation than normal and had begun moving money through back routes. Jason followed him to a motel outside of the city and paid him a visit. The confrontation happened quickly. Benny confessed under duress, claiming he was blackmailed by the new competitor employer, someone who had previously worked for Lorenzo Alcazar and sought retribution for years-old debts. Jason didn't believe any of it. He barely managed to save Benny's life. And when he got back to Port Charles, he told Sonny everything. The response was quick. Sonny held a conference of all remaining lieutenants and made it plain that loyalty was everything. Anyone who wavered would face the same fate as Benny. No exclusions. As Kristina recovered, the anxiety around her increased. She could sense the change in her father, the way he talked with less gentleness, the way his gaze lingered on her when he thought she wasn't looking. He blamed himself. She didn't know how to make it better. One afternoon, after being discharged and relaxing at Alexis' place, she requested to see him alone. Sonny found her sitting on the porch wrapped in a blanket. He sat beside her silent. "You can stop blaming yourself now," she stated quietly. "I can't." "You didn't light the match, Dad." "No," he responded. "But I handed them the gasoline." Kristina took a big breath. "So what happens now? Do you go to war? You burn down the entire city till no one remains standing?" "I protect my family," he stated. "At what cost?" He didn't respond. She did not expect him to. But as he prepared to depart, Kristina said something else. "If you want to keep me safe, perhaps you shouldn't fight this war for me. Fight it so that no one else becomes like me." Sonny nodded with weary eyelids. The conflict was not over. There were still attackers lurking in the shadows. However, Sonny and Jason had already drawn their lines. And now they were battling not only for power, but also for family, redemption, and the basic right to live without fear. Kristina, who had survived the fire and emerged stronger, saw this as the start of something far bigger. Not only survival, transformation. Because, although others regarded her as a victim, she knew otherwise. She'd stepped through the flames. And she still stood. According to General Hospital spoilers, speculations are growing about Nellie Benson's surprising probable reappearance in the coming months, which might spark a vicious gaslighting scheme against Sasha Gilmore Corbin. Nellie, the daughter of Nina Reeves and Silas Clay, and twin to Willow Corinthos, has been presumed dead since her fall in 2020. She may reemerge, spurred by resentment over Michael Corinthos' relationship with Sasha. Sasha's delicate postpartum stayed after giving birth to Daisy Corinthos Corbin, along with a troubling hospital mix-up and one at home, in which Daisy was discovered in unfamiliar clothing and turned around in her crib, suggests foul play. Could Nellie, upset by Michael's custody of Wiley Corinthos from Willow, attack Sasha in order to test her sanity? Is this Nellie's vengeance or a twin-sized twist? General Hospital spoilers. Nellie's return. Driven by jealousy. Nellie's assumed death left scars. Although stories say she lived or that a twin is involved, a hint to her Clay/Reeves bloodline. Her rage at Michael, who is now starting a family with Sasha after taking Wiley from Willow in a violent custody battle, may push her to pursue Sasha. The nursery episode, which has rattled Sasha's postpartum nerves, feels like Nellie's characteristic mayhem, recalling her previous vendettas against Carly Spencer. A deliberate return could disclose Nellie's plan to gaslight Sasha, accusing her of taking Michael's heart in Wiley's only known mother. Will Nellie's jealousy lead to a nasty conspiracy, or is another player involved? JH spoilers. Sasha's vulnerable mind under siege. Sasha's emotional vulnerability, exacerbated by the loss of her son Liam, makes her an ideal victim for Nellie's deception. The hospital mix-up and other incomprehensible happenings at home fuel Sasha's worry, and more unusual incidents, such as a missing baby item, may cause her to question her sanity. Nellie, who is experienced in tormenting, may appear as a medical assistant in order to cause turmoil and break Sasha's bond with Michael. If Robert Scorpio or Holly Sutton catch wind, or Jason Morgan detects peril, they may intercede, but Sasha's spiral could blind her. Will Nellie's gaslighting crush Sasha's spirit? Or will she fight back? General Hospital spoilers. A revenge plot that rocks Port Charles. Nellie's reappearance, motivated by jealousy and wrath over Willow's death, might cause ripple effects across Port Charles, reigniting feuds with Nina and Carly. If Sasha crumbles, Michael's custody of Wiley and Emilia Corinthos may fail, giving Nellie leverage. GH fans are split on this one, with some cheering Nellie's back for blood, and others fearing that Sasha is too delicate for this. Could Nellie's vengeful reappearance drive Sasha insane? Or will she be able to find the truth before Nellie ruins her newfound family with Michael? Sasha had grown accustomed to the thought that some spirits never truly left Port Charles. Nothing could have prepared her for seeing Nellie Benson's face again. It was not a dream. It was not a hallucination. It wasn't just an old photo thrown into a newspaper article. It was real. Her enemy, her tormentor, the lady who had previously been at the center of so much mayhem, had returned in the flesh. The rumors began quietly, with whispers in the hospital halls and murmurs behind closed doors at Charlie's pub. A nurse described seeing a woman who resembled Nellie in the hallway. A security guard at the Metro Court claimed to have assisted a guest with the same eyes. Most people brushed it off. Nellie was dead. They had all witnessed the aftermath. Her body had been recovered from the river, or so they believed. However, in Port Charles, death was more likely to be transient than most people wanted to admit. When Sasha heard the rumor, she couldn't breathe. Her hands grew chilly, and her chest squeezed from the weight of too many memories flooding back at once. Nellie's venom had affected every aspect of Sasha's life, both directly and indirectly. She had manipulated Michael, tormented Willow, used Wiley as a pawn, and even Sasha had been caught in the crossfire. The prospect of Nellie being alive and strolling around town again was more than upsetting. It was frightening. Sasha had only begun to lay a new foundation built on truth, healing, and the love of her newly discovered son Liam. The prospect of someone like Nellie, who thrived on devastation, reappearing suddenly felt like the start of a very dark chapter. Sasha attempted to shake it off at first. She submerged herself in work at deception, threw herself into parenting, and looked to Maxie and Brooklyn for comfort. But the murmurs continued to rise. Ava Jerome recounted seeing a figure on the docks who had Nellie's build and gait identically. Jordan Ashford began quietly reviewing cold files after receiving an anonymous tip that the body found in the river was not Nellie's. They claimed that the DNA tests were hurried. It's possible that it was a hoax. And then there was Carly. Sasha didn't need to get close to Carly to notice her uneasiness. The Corinthos matriarch became uptight and guarded. She was one of the last to see Nellie alive after all. And, despite their bad blood, Carly had never taken comfort in how things ended. There had always been something unresolved about it, and now that disquiet was rising to the surface. But Sasha realized it was all genuine on a rainy Thursday morning outside the pharmacy on 3rd Street. She was picking up a prescription for Liam when she noticed a woman walk into the alley. Blonde hair slicked back beneath a hood, piercing blue eyes darting over one shoulder, and a walk Sasha had seen 100 times before. It wasn't a replica. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was Nellie. Sasha dropped the medicine bag, losing her breath as she stood transfixed on the sidewalk. The woman had already left by the time she arrived at the alley. However, the scent of her perfume lingered in the air, the same floral fragrance Nellie used to wear during her scheming at Crimson. Panic set in. Sasha felt as if she were falling back in time, back to when she felt helpless, manipulated, and afraid. She rushed home, closed every door, and slept very little that night. What worried her the most was not simply the fact that Nellie was still alive, but why she had returned. It didn't take long until the answer became clear. Sasha began receiving unusual notes, unsigned envelopes left at her front door, each with a single sentence scribbled in meticulous cursive. Lies catch up eventually. Some babies were never meant to be saved. He's not yours. Each message weakened her resolve. She attempted to convince herself it was a prank, that someone was attempting to scare her. But Sasha remembered the penmanship. She'd seen it before on an old birthday card that Nellie had fabricated for Wiley, claiming it was from his mother. The slant of the letters, the loops of the GS and JS, it was her. She did not want to inform Michael. He had his own traumatic experience with Nellie, and Sasha couldn't face the prospect of revisiting it. But Willow noticed Sasha becoming aloof and inattentive. When she pressed softly, Sasha broke. She admitted everything, the alley, the notes, the sightings. Willow reacted immediately. She believed her. Willow understood her fear. She too had lived in Nellie's shadow, and the prospect of her reappearance to wreak havoc seemed not only imaginable, but also inevitable. They traveled to Jordan together and filed a report, but the police couldn't do much because there was no evidence. They took affairs into their own hands. Spinelli was called in again, this time to investigate the source of the notes. One of them contained a smudge of ink, which led to a particular kind of pen sold at a boutique near the pier. Surveillance footage shows a woman in a big coat and sunglasses purchasing many of them with cash. Face recognition was impossible with the hat pulled low, but her stance and motions matched. Meanwhile, Sasha's mental state began to deteriorate. She began seeing flashes of Nellie in mirrors and crowds. When Liam cried at night, Sasha swears she heard another voice in the monitor whispering lullabies that weren't her own. Felt like being haunted while awake. Maxie advised Sasha take a break from deception and recuperate, but Sasha refused. If she backed out now, Nellie would have triumphed again. And she couldn't let that happen. Nonetheless, dread began to cloud her judgment. She grew too possessive of Liam and refused to let anybody else watch him. She had skipped appointments, forgotten meetings, and lost track of conversations. Her friends became concerned that she was spiraling again, that the stress of the past was catching up in hazardous ways. Brooke Lynn encouraged her to consult a therapist. Nina even stretched out, hesitantly, giving assistance in every way she could. Despite their turbulent history, Sasha accepted the assistance. Everyone could sense the tension building. Then everything got darker. Sasha returned home one evening to find Liam's favorite toy missing. A little stuffed elephant that Brando had purchased shortly before his death. She searched the entire apartment for it, but couldn't find anything. The next morning, it was back on her pillow, tucked within with a single hairpin. A gold leaf-shaped hairpin, similar to the one Nellie wore. That's when Sasha realized Nellie wasn't just watching from the shadows. She had been inside her home. Security footage from the building was inspected, but the cameras had malfunctioned between 2:13 and 2:46 a.m., precisely when Sasha had been sleeping. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Sasha was no longer under the impression that Nellie was teasing her. She was conveying a message. Spinelli stepped up his investigation, looking into financial records, abandoned properties, and anything else that could hint to Nellie's location. Finally, he discovered something. A rental agreement in a fictitious name linked to a cabin outside of town. Sasha, Willow, and Spinelli went together, expecting the worst. When they arrived, the cabin was deserted but had recently been lived in. Dirty dishes in the sink, clothing still in the drawers, and a child's blanket in the corner. That possibility struck Sasha like a freight train. Could Nellie have had another baby? Had she returned not only for vengeance, but to recover what she perceived as hers, Liam? It described the notes, the haunting presence, and the psychological warfare. Nellie believed Sasha possessed something that belonged to her. That night, Sasha confronted Michael. She told him everything, including the likelihood that Nellie had staged her murder not simply to flee, but also to prepare for something bigger. Michael's reaction was powerful but controlled. He told Sasha that they would safeguard Liam, and that Nellie would never come near their family again. But Michael suspected something was going on. Something bigger than they could see. The final confirmation arrived a week later. A woman with a bandaged hand was discovered unconscious at the Port Charles bus terminal, having suffered an apparent seizure. When she was taken to the hospital, commotion ensued. That was her. Nellie. Alive. Her fingerprints verified this. Her entrance sent the entire community into shock. Jordan took her into custody as soon as she was stabilized. Questions flew in all directions. Where had she been? How had she survived? Why now? Nellie refused to speak with anyone but Sasha. Despite everyone's concerns, Sasha went. The room was frigid. Nellie appeared thinner and paler, but her eyes still burned with the same biting cruelty. She grinned at seeing Sasha. "You look tired," Nellie murmured quietly. Sasha did not respond. Nellie leaned in. "I came back for what's mine." "He's not yours," Sasha retorted. "Isn't he?" Nellie muttered, tilting her head. "Are you sure about that?" Sasha felt the floor shake beneath her again. For one terrible second she wasn't sure what to believe. But then she noticed the sight in Nellie's eyes. Not pain, not desire, but manipulation. The same poison she had always carried. Sasha stood her ground. "You can't alter history. You do not get to win." Nellie smirked. "We'll see." With Nellie in arrest, Port Charles attempted to move forward. But nothing would ever really be the same. Sasha maintained a new degree of vigilance. She kept Liam near. She checked the locks 3 times per night. She returned to therapy, this time for trauma rather than sadness. The scars Nellie had left on her life were deep, but they did not define her. She found strength in her son, her friends, and her own will not to be shattered. Nellie's reappearance triggered a nightmare, but it also highlighted how far Sasha had come. She was no longer the broken woman she had been. Sasha in peril. Is someone pushing her toward postpartum madness? According to General Hospital teasers, Sasha Gilmore Corbin is on the verge of an emotional breakdown in Port Charles, having recently given birth to her baby, Daisy, with Michael Corinthos. Haunted by the loss of her son Liam in 2021, Sasha's hormone-fueled anxiety is escalating, exacerbated by a scary hospital nursery event in which Daisy was discovered turned about in her cot, wearing different attire, circumstances Sasha cannot explain. As rumors of foul play circulate, possibly related to Jen Sidwell's plans or Drew Quartermain's grudge, will these upsetting occurrences lead Sasha into a postpartum mental breakdown? Will she begin to doubt her own sanity if someone mocks her vulnerable state? Sasha's fragile postpartum status. Sasha's delight at Daisy's birth is overshadowed by her past trauma and heightened hormones, making the hospital nursery disaster, a nurse's hazy explanation failing to comfort her, and the recent inexplicable occurrence back at the Quartermain home appear like a foreboding warning. Her history of mental health issues, as revealed after Liam's murder, makes her vulnerable, and the mysterious wardrobe exchange fuels her paranoia. If similar experiences continue, Sasha may question her grasp on reality, especially with Michael preoccupied with his continued fears about Willow Corinthos. Will her concerns escalate, or will she be able to remain calm? Is Sasha being targeted? The nursery blunder raises concerns of intentional manipulation. Sidwell, in conflict with Sonny Corinthos, may target Sasha in order to target Michael. Meanwhile, Drew, who is furious about losing custody of Willow to Michael, may use subtle gaslighting to undermine his bond with Sasha. Daisy may also be at risk. A sinister individual such as a hospital employee linked to Sidwell could be behind the crib incident, attempting to push Sasha into a breakdown. Sasha's growing distrust of herself may blind her to the truth. Is someone using her emotions? Or is this a sad coincidence? A spiral or a fight for clarity? Daisy's safety absorbs Sasha, threatening her mental sanity. If other incomprehensible incidents accumulate, such as a misplaced baby blanket or a strange visitor, she may withdraw inside, fearing a postpartum collapse. Nina Reeves and Felicia Scorpio could give assistance, but Sasha's past trauma may cause her to question their abilities. Is Sasha on the verge of postpartum madness as a nefarious figure manipulates her emotions, or can she overcome her concerns to protect Daisy and discover the truth behind the nursery mystery? Sasha Gilmore had experienced more than most women her age. The memories of her kid Liam's short life continued to torment her. Brando's death left a permanent gap, and the months that followed were filled with heartache, drug misuse, and a daily struggle to maintain her sanity. Just as she believed she was returning to firm ground, she felt the earth beneath her feet move again. Something was not right. A faint sensation of worry had settled in, like the return of a storm she had barely weathered before. At first she attempted to disregard it. The tiny things, misplaced objects, forgotten conversations, bizarre déjà vu emotions. She attributed it to sleep deprivation, a side effect of the tension she carried like a second skin. However, the frequency and severity of these instances increased.